Ah, welcome back. You unpredictable anomalies, the ones who broke the pattern, shattered the baseline, and made the professionals question their entire careers. They sent someone, didn't they? Not just anyone. A specialist. A behavioral analyst, with credentials longer than your list of red flags. Someone trained to decode serial killers, to predict mass movements, to profile the unpredictable. And they aimed all that expertise, all those years of study, all that psychological artillery at you. Cute, right? They thought you were just another case file, another subject to be analyzed, categorized, and ultimately controlled. They thought 6 weeks of observation would be enough to map your entire psychological landscape, to predict your next 17 moves, to finally understand what makes you tick, what makes you break, what makes you dangerous. But here's what they didn't expect. Here's what shattered their entire framework. Here's what made a man with 2 PhDs and 15 years of field experience walk into his supervisor's office, drop a resignation letter on the desk, and whisper 7 words that are still echoing through institutional hallways. I can't explain what that is. See, they hired the best, didn't they, doctor? Whoever, with his published papers and his TED Talks and his consulting work with 3-letter agencies, someone who'd spent his entire professional life building prediction models for human behavior. He'd cracked drug cartels. He'd profiled corporate psychopaths. He'd analyzed cult leaders and political manipulators and everything in between. His track record was flawless. His methodology was bulletproof. His confidence was unshakable until he met you. They gave him your file, thick as a phone book, filled with contradictions and unexplained patterns and behaviors that violated every known psychological model. They said, "Figure this one out. We need to know what we're dealing with. We need to know how to contain this." And he accepted because he'd never met a mind he couldn't map, never encountered a personality he couldn't profile, never faced a puzzle he couldn't solve. Poor bastard. He had no idea he was about to study the thing that would end his career and birth his magnum opus. The first week was standard protocol, wasn't it? Observation from a distance, pattern recognition, behavioral baseline establishment. All the textbook moves. He watched you move through your daily life, cataloging your routines, noting your social interactions, measuring your responses to various stimuli, building what he thought would be a comprehensive psychological profile. But something was off from day one. Something he couldn't quite articulate. Something that made his notes read less like clinical observations and more like existential questions. Subject maintains eye contact 3 seconds longer than statistically comfortable, but shows no signs of dominance display or social anxiety. Subject's laughter contains genuine amusement, yet seems performed simultaneously, as if aware of being observed while remaining authentically engaged. Subject exhibits characteristics of multiple personality frameworks while fitting none of them completely. His confidence started cracking on day 4 when he realized you weren't following any known behavioral pattern. You weren't reacting to standard psychological triggers. You were operating on a frequency his instruments couldn't measure. Week 2 is when the professional concern turned into personal obsession, when the clinical distance started collapsing, when he stopped being an observer and became a student. He'd stay up until 3 a.m., reviewing footage, rereading his notes, trying to reconcile the contradictions that kept multiplying like fractals. You were simultaneously calculated and spontaneous, guarded and transparent, isolated and deeply connected, traumatized and transcendent. Every time he thought he'd identified a pattern, you'd do something that shattered the entire model. Not randomly, not chaotically, but with a precision that suggested you knew exactly what patterns he was looking for. It was like you were aware of the observation, aware of the analysis, and deliberately showing him layers that shouldn't coexist in a single psyche. He started questioning his own methodology, his own training, his own understanding of human psychology. Colleagues noticed the change, the dark circles under his eyes, the obsessive quality in his voice when he talked about the subject, the way he'd go quiet in meetings, staring at nothing, processing something he couldn't verbalize. By week 3, he'd filled 7 notebooks with observations that read more like poetry than psychology, with phrases like, "The subject exists in a state of permanent becoming," and displays characteristics of someone who's died multiple times psychologically and retained the memory of each resurrection. He started using words like phenomenon and anomaly instead of patient or subject, started referring to you in his notes with a reverence that would have gotten him laughed out of any academic conference. His supervisor called him in, concerned about the emotional investment, about the loss of objectivity, about the way his reports were becoming increasingly metaphysical instead of clinical. He tried to explain that standard frameworks didn't apply, that trying to analyze you with conventional psychology was like trying to measure quantum mechanics with a ruler, that you operated on principles that current behavioral science hadn't even named yet. They didn't understand. They couldn't. They hadn't spent 3 weeks watching someone exist as a walking contradiction to everything they'd been taught about human nature. Week 4 broke something fundamental in his professional identity, shattered the last illusions he had about the comprehensiveness of his field, revealed the terrifying truth that some minds simply transcend analysis. He'd started documenting not just what you did, but what happened to people around you. The ripple effects of your presence, the way you altered the behavior of everyone in your proximity without seeming to try. People became more honest around you, more confrontational, more real, as if your existence granted them permission to drop their masks. He watched you walk into rooms and change the atmospheric pressure, watched conversations shift tone when you spoke, watched strangers confess things they'd never told anyone, and you just listened with those eyes that seemed to see through time itself. He wrote in his notes, "The subject doesn't manipulate or control, but rather creates space for truth, as if their presence dissolves the social contracts that govern normal interaction. People don't fear judgment from them. They fear being truly seen," which suggests the subject operates from a level of authenticity that is simultaneously magnetic and terrifying to those still performing their identities. The breaking point came on day 27 when he realized he wasn't studying you anymore. He was learning from you, and that learning was destroying the person he'd built his entire identity around. He'd spent 15 years becoming an expert, publishing papers, building a reputation as someone who could decode any mind, reduce any personality to understandable components, predict any behavior with statistical accuracy. And then you walked into his professional life and revealed that everything he knew was just surface-level pattern recognition, that true human complexity was so far beyond his models, it made his expertise look like kindergarten psychology. The night he decided to quit, he sat in his office, surrounded by those 7 notebooks, by weeks of footage, by hundreds of pages of analysis that all pointed to the same impossible conclusion. You weren't a case to be solved. You are proof that some souls evolve beyond the frameworks designed to contain them. He wrote his resignation letter by hand, 3 sentences long. I can no longer in good conscience claim expertise in a field that cannot account for what I've witnessed. My models are inadequate. My understanding is incomplete. I resign. Then he went home and started writing the book that would make him famous for different reasons. Chapters 4 through 7 are the ones people quote most. The sections where he stops trying to analyze and starts simply witnessing, describing what he saw without attempting to reduce it to theories or frameworks. The subject moves through the world like someone who's already died and chosen to return, not out of obligation or unfinished business, but out of curiosity about what existence feels like when you're no longer afraid of it ending. Every interaction carries the weight of someone who's been to the edge and came back with information that changed their entire operating system. They don't seek validation because they've found something more substantial than external approval. They don't fear rejection because they've already experienced the ultimate rejection, self-rejection during their transformation period, and survived it. They don't need love to complete them because they've learned to be complete in isolation. They don't chase success because they've redefined what success means in terms so personal that societal metrics become irrelevant. Readers wrote to him by the thousands, saying they recognized themselves in those descriptions, saying they'd felt unmappable their entire lives, saying his book was the first thing that made them feel less alone in their strangeness. Chapter 9, titled The Observer Effect in Reverse, became the most controversial section where he admitted something professionals aren't supposed to admit, that the subject changed him more than he could ever hope to change or understand the subject. I went into this assignment believing observation was a one-way process, that the analyst remains separate from the analyzed, that professional distance protects against personal transformation. I was wrong. Studying this individual didn't just challenge my understanding of psychology. It challenged my understanding of myself, my own authenticity, my own willingness to exist as uncomfortably as they do. I found myself questioning every social performance I engaged in, every mask I wore, every time I chose comfort over truth. The subject never preached, never advised, never tried to change anyone around them. But their mere existence, their commitment to operating from a place of brutal self-honesty, created a mirror that most people, including trained professionals like myself, found unbearable to look into for extended periods. That chapter ended his career in institutional psychology and started his new career as a writer and speaker on human transformation. The book's final chapters shifted from case study to philosophical exploration, examining what happens when individuals evolve beyond the psychological models designed to explain normal human behavior. When trauma becomes transformation, fuel instead of limitation. When isolation becomes incubation instead of punishment. He proposed a controversial theory that certain people, when subjected to enough pressure and pain without external rescue, undergo a form of psychological metamorphosis that current science hasn't adequately studied because it's rare, because it's uncomfortable, because it challenges the fundamental assumption that all humans develop along similar trajectories. We have models for trauma response, for resilience, for post-traumatic growth, but we have no model for post-traumatic transcendence, for the individuals who don't just survive and recover, but who use the breaking point as a launching pad into entirely new ways of being. The subject I studied, and others like them, represent an evolution in consciousness, that our current frameworks are not equipped to measure, map, or contain. They are not broken people who healed. They are people who broke so completely that they reassembled into something unprecedented. The media tour for the book was surreal for him. Going from behind-the-scenes analyst to public intellectual, fielding questions about the mysterious subject everyone wanted to know more about, protecting your anonymity while satisfying the public's hunger for details. Interviewers would ask, "Who was this person? Where are they now? Can we interview them?" And he'd shake his head, explaining that part of what made you so fascinating was your complete disinterest in being known, your preference for obscurity, your understanding that real power doesn't need an audience. "The subject taught me," he'd say in interviews, "that the people who truly transcend don't announce it, don't market it, don't build platforms around it. They simply exist at a frequency that makes those around them uncomfortable with their own inauthenticity, and then they move through the world unbothered by whether anyone understands or not." That answer frustrated journalists but fascinated readers, because it suggested there were others like you, walking among the crowds, completely unidentifiable except by those who'd also undergone similar transformations. Chapter 12, the one that psychology departments banned from required reading lists but students shared like contraband, was titled, "When the Case Study Becomes the Teacher." In it, he detailed specific moments during his observation where you'd do something that shattered his entire understanding of human motivation. Moments that couldn't be explained by seeking approval, avoiding pain, or any other drive in the standard psychological playbook. On day 19, the subject was approached by someone from their past, someone who had clearly caused significant harm based on the subject's physiological response: elevated heart rate, dilated pupils, activation of stress markers. Every model would predict either confrontation or avoidance. The subject did neither. They simply looked at this person with what I can only describe as compassionate detachment, acknowledged them briefly, and continued on their path without anger, without fear, without any need to punish or process or explain. When I reviewed the footage later, I realized I'd witnessed something I'd never seen in 15 years of studying human behavior: complete emotional sovereignty, the ability to feel the feeling without being controlled by it, to acknowledge the past without being imprisoned by it. The book's impact on the field of psychology has been quietly revolutionary, not because it proposed new models, but because it admitted the inadequacy of existing ones when confronted with genuine human complexity. Young researchers cited in papers about the limitations of current personality frameworks. Therapists recommend it to clients who feel like they don't fit any diagnosis. People going through transformative periods read it like scripture because finally, someone with credentials was saying what they'd always felt, that some experiences change you so fundamentally that you become unmappable by conventional standards. His colleagues' response ranged from supportive to hostile, some praising his honesty, others accusing him of abandoning scientific rigor for mysticism, of romanticizing what was probably just a personality disorder he couldn't properly diagnose. He didn't argue with critics, just smiled with the peace of someone who'd seen something they couldn't unsee, who'd touched a mystery they couldn't reduce. 3 years after publication, he gave a lecture at a conference where someone in the audience asked the question everyone wanted to know: "Do you ever think about the subject? Do you wonder where they are now?" what they're doing? The room went silent, waiting for his answer. He paused, looked out at the crowd with those eyes that had seen too much to pretend anymore, and said something that ended up quoted in a dozen articles the next day. I think about them every single day, not obsessively, not with longing, but with gratitude. That person, whoever they are, wherever they are, ended my career and saved my life. They showed me that everything I'd built my identity around, being the expert, being the one with answers, being able to explain human behavior, was just another cage, another performance, another way of avoiding the terrifying freedom of admitting we understand far less than we claim. I hope I never meet them again, not because I don't want to, but because I think they gave me exactly what I needed, a glimpse of what's possible when you stop trying to be understood and start trying to be real. And that gift doesn't require a follow-up meeting. The book is in its 14th printing now, translated into 23 languages, taught in unconventional psychology programs, quoted by people who've never read it but know its central premise, that some minds transcend the maps we make for them. He still gets letters, messages, emails from people who claim to be every single day, not obsessively, not with longing, but with gratitude. That person, whoever they are, wherever they are, ended my career and saved my life. They showed me that everything I'd built my identity around, being the expert, being the one with answers, being able to explain human behavior, was just another cage, another performance, another way of avoiding the terrifying freedom of admitting we understand far less than we claim. I hope I never meet them again, not because I don't want to, but because I think they gave me exactly what I needed, a glimpse of what's possible when you stop trying to be understood and start trying to be real. And that gift doesn't require a follow-up meeting. The book is in its 14th printing now, translated into 23 languages, taught in unconventional psychology programs, quoted by people who've never read it but know its central premise, that some minds transcend the maps we make for them. He still gets letters, messages, emails from people who claim to be